Here's a tale of two students, both working adults. He commutes to college before and after work, carrying all the baggage that goes with it. She goes to Independence University, and Independence University goes with her. It's online, so all she needs is a connection, and anywhere becomes her campus. He's getting a degree, but he's also getting majorly stressed out. She chose Independence University online for a better life offline. Visit independence.edu or call 800-370-1077 today.
Blog Talk Radio.
Days that just go wrong, make you wanna holler and shout and throw your hands up in the air, wondering what it's all about. When you think that things can't get much worse, in a second, oh, everything just goes south. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll tell you one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. Road ain't alone. Keep on keeping on. Some people will stand in your way. They're always saying what you cannot do. Don't stop chasing your dreams. Working hard to make them come true. Oh. And if it ever gets too tough, just remember your faith will always see you through it. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. Take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't alone. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't long. Keep on. The road ain't long. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Oh yeah. Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. Whatever doesn't kill you, it makes you strong. The theme of this show each week, because that's what we do. Jennifer Montrose down in Alabama, Dan Wilson down in Florida, and my good buddy Glenn Atkinson here in the Dallas, Texas area with me. We keep on keeping on. And I'm going to tell you, it isn't easy sometimes. If y'all haven't noticed, I've taken like a 4-week break from Facebook. Sometimes you just got to get away from the interaction. And I've gotten some other things, wonderful things done on the back burner that I've had some great time. But I still have been fighting the fight. And that's what we do here at Contending for Truth Radio. That's what we do at American Sovereignty Radio. I mentioned Glenn. Dan, if you'll unmute Glenn, we'll bring him in because we're going to have some really good discussion tonight. I want us to talk about Iowa because, one of the things that we all love doing here at Contending for Truth Radio, and especially at American Sovereignty, is we like to predict and we like to look at things and tear things apart and analyze, and I think we all like to bring out the little bit of the Dick Morris in us. And I'm going to tell you, folks, a lot of people minimize the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire caucuses for a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of reasons why they aren't important. They're never important as to who the winner's going to be, but they do provide a lot of momentum. I want to give you an example of how that works. Ted Cruz last night walked away with the trophy, but he really didn't gain a whole lot of the prize. He really did what was expected. We've been expecting for 4 weeks that he could pull this out in Iowa. He had a great grassroots team. They did their job. He won. Marco Rubio, however, came in third, but, boy, he really won the prize of the momentum last night. He is going to be the one that's going to benefit the most out of Iowa last night. And Donald Trump, Donald Trump's clear at the top. He can mess around a little bit, He can play flip it a little bit. He did that with the debate. Got a lot of hassle about it, but I think when you're that far up in the polls, you've got a little bit of room to play, and I think he did, and I think he came out all right last night. We've been expecting that Ted Cruz could surpass the popularity polls because of Ted Cruz's ground organization. Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, and Rand Paul, all three have incredible ground games. But last night it did some things, and next week we'll do some things. And one of the things that the primaries and the caucuses, especially these early ones, are very important for is as we go forward now, they've really kind of reset everything. We've got a new set of data entered into what's going on now. And we've got the winners. We've got 1, 2, and 3. And we've got the losers. We've got the ones. Huckabee immediately left last night. I think that was very smart. He had a chance of gaining 3, 4, 5% and giving him a little bit of hope. He didn't do any of that, so he left. I imagine we're going to see a few leave here soon. I think Kasich and Christie pretty much know they're done. I think after New Hampshire, if they don't either one do well, they have to leave. So everything kind of gets reset. And here's where we stand right now. We've got Ted Cruz, who has had some incredible, slowly built momentum for the entire season. I've never seen anything like it. Generally, a campaign has their high time, and then they fall off, and and they settle where they're going to settle, and they run to the end. Ted Cruz hadn't really had that. Ted Cruz has been in a slow momentum upwards, and that momentum kind of slowed down, maybe what you could even call a stall. Not going back down, but just kind of holding where he was at as we came into the primaries. Marco Rubio, has had some definite momentum growing underneath. Marco Rubio has very little ground game in Iowa. Everything that he gained last night came from the momentum that he's got. So going into this, and then we've got Donald Trump, who I believe is playing the role of a giant buffer for us. And doing an incredible job. But it all reset last night. We're going to be in kind of limbo here for a week, and then we'll see what happens in New Hampshire. And then it's going to go in a direction. And as we head towards the 2 weeks after that, we're going to be heading into the Super Tuesday. And a lot of states, I think, at one time I thought there was 15, but maybe there's only 11 different states, Texas included, are going to vote. And then if it really comes down to a Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, as I believe it's been heading, I believe at that point everybody else is out. If we see Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump battling it out between here and that day and on that day, then I think it continues to be a battle between the three of them. And it could be an incredible battle. as we watch. Remember, in New Hampshire, the more liberal conservatives, they're going to vote. So you've got some of those establishment-type guys that have a little bit better chance of getting some points, where they were down at ones and zeros. I loved Jeb Bush's 2 and then barely a 3. I think a big message was sent out last night as well. When you look at the total of the votes that were taken by non-establishment outsiders like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. I know Ted Cruz has served on the Senate, but I can guarantee you he served as an outsider. So far, so good. We hope that continues on. Ben Carson. These guys all took a good chunk of the vote. So as I'm gonna start it there. I want us to talk about our predictions, what we think, what we liked, what we noticed, and talk about these, because I'm going to tell you, we're in limbo now, and it's going to be interesting. Like I've been saying, for people that love politics, like those of us that are on this show tonight, this is hard drugs. It's always an incredible time during the primary season anyways, and we are in the middle of the most exciting primary season we have seen in my lifetime, most definitely. So with that, Jennifer Montrose, I'm going to pass it to you, let you pass it to Dan, and let Dan pass it to Glenn, and when we bring it back, we'll see where we go.
Well, it was interesting to see how things kind of shook out. Cruz has definitely got a ground game. One of our good dear friends, Ken Brolin, has been managing Cruz Camp and getting all those volunteers to get out and do what they need to do. Some say that it hurt Donald Trump for not going to the debate on the rest of the stage with the other candidates, and because he chose to do his own thing. But I thought he got second place and spoke gracefully about it. And Carson seems to think that that Cruz was at fault for putting out false information that he was getting out of the race, and I think that was pretty much due to the fact that CNN had put that false statement out there and did not clarify, the lamestream media doing their own propaganda show. So, but we'll see how it goes in New Hampshire. I know it has really excited the grassroots base, and the fact that we have, a Republican candidate in Iowa who got the most votes ever of any Republican candidate, I think they say in history, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty interesting, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's excited at least number one and number two, Cruz and Trump, volunteers to get busy and, really, not rest on their laurels. I think, a lot of the Trump volunteers are recognizing that this is not that easy, and I don't know, they say, well, he's had so many people at the rallies and they've talked about caucusing when he's been there doing events in the area and stuff, and why did more people not show up? But, this caucusing is different than a primary race. It's a lot different, and if you're not used to it or not familiar with it, it can, you may kind of be fuzzy about what's going on. But anyway, so, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Our primary here in Alabama is March 1st. We're in the SEC primary, and, a lot of people are saying, they're seeing a lot of Cruz all over the place and not much of anything else. But who knows? Who knows, where it's going to go. So I've got my picks and chooses, and I would, but in the end, in the general election, I'm going to vote for the Republican candidate on the Republican ticket. I'm not writing someone in, and I'm definitely not going to stay home. I'm going to go out and exercise my right to vote. Dan, turn it over to you.
Jennifer, let me throw in here, because it's important to go with what you just said. And I want our listeners to really understand this. When we're talking about these primaries, and this is a basic, you got two different pieces for a campaign. You got a grassroots effort, and then you have got momentum that is going on in your national numbers. Donald Trump has a campaign team there in Iowa, but Donald Trump has never really built a Herman Cain-style grassroots. which he hasn't had to so far. Now, maybe at this point he's going to find out that was a mistake not to do. But we see the same thing in Rubio. If Rubio had listened to the proper people in the beginning of his campaign and worked on a grassroots organized network like Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul have, Marco Rubio would have taken second place last night. And the numbers were close enough. Marco Rubio doing that with the momentum he's had in the last couple of weeks could have possibly been an upset and taken first. And it shows just how important that grassroots effort is there. And the candidates that have got that are going to do better than their numbers. And if you look at Real Clear Politics, you look at the Iowa numbers, they've also got the results next to the numbers. And you can see the people that did better than their numbers. Donald Trump did worse than his numbers. Ted Cruz did better than his numbers. Marco Rubio did better than his numbers. Ben Carson did better than his numbers. Because either they had the momentum that Rubio had or they had the grassroots effort. Those guys that didn't have that did worse than their numbers. And you look at Jeb Bush, his numbers going in to Ohio, he got nothing next to what he was getting in some of these other guys. I wanted to tack that on there because I think that's important for our listeners because we're going to do a lot of supposition over the next few weeks. And that's got to be the basics of when you're looking at a primary and trying to figure out exactly how those numbers. So Dan Wilson down in Florida.
No, I agree with you. When I'm looking at this, is Cruz has been going along with building his base, and he's kind of like the little train that could. I think I can, and he's going up a little bit at a time, and it's been a slow, progressive climb. And that really, it set the groundwork. So when he went into this caucus, people were well aware of him, and that really helped him. Now, Rubio got his really shot is because of the old school Republicans who really pushed him, and that got them going, and that threw him right up into competition. Trump, his problem was his own arrogance, and when he kind of said that he could go out and shoot somebody and his people would still be behind him, and that arrogance really came back to bite him in the butt. So he needed a little reality check, and this was a good one for him. And I think, the way he accepted losing was very, very good for him, and he's going to start taking the game a little more seriously. And he's one person I actually would like to win because he takes things down in a way that the average person can understand. Politicians are known, as all of us know, are known to speak in their own way, and they try to hide what their true meanings are by just the way they phrase something. And the average American really doesn't understand this. And until you've been listening and watching the game for a while, it takes you a little while to learn that. Trump can bring this down to the everyday person. And this is where another thing I'd like to say is that everybody is hung up that Trump says he is pro-abortion. Now, of course, being a solid conservative and Christian, I am against abortion. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But we also have to understand is the president does not have control over whether abortion is legal or not. That falls on the Supreme Court. And unless you understand politics, the president really doesn't have that much control over things like abortion. So what their position is not as important as hiring the correct justice to go in and shoot. Am I still here? Hello?
Yes, you're still here.
Oh, okay. Okay, I heard a thing click, and Blog Talk has been hanging up on me lately. It was Scott that fell off this time. But anyway, by understanding that the president doesn't make these choices is what makes a major change. And we can deal with a president who may be pro-abortion because right now, more than anything, we need a bulldozer. We need somebody to shake up the entire system. And once we shake up the entire system, we can get rid of the old school and we can replace it with the new conservative ideals that are not really new, but they have been hidden for so long, under the progressive movement and this politically correct baloney and all that. But it'll allow us to go through a renaissance. And this is why I am still for Trump. No, he is not the perfect conservative. But he has tools that will help us out in the future. And let him shake Washington up for the next 8 years, and then send in a solid conservative, and then we can make some major changes. So I'm looking him as a stepping stone to our objective. And people have to realize that this is, it took us 50 years to get into this mess. It's going to take us about 50 years to dig ourselves out. And another thing I'd like to say before I pass it over to you, Glenn, is I want Carson and Fiorina to stay in because you want to talk about two solid conservatives that can help our country. And I want them still in the game right up to the end because I want them to go into the cabinet. And I want Christie too, because can you imagine Christie as an attorney general? He'd have Hillary in jail in 2 shakes of a lamb tail. I mean, and he'd have her. He'd throw the book at her, the cabinet, the bookshelf, the bookcase, everything at her. And there would be no saving her because she has broken so many laws and some major laws at that. She'd be in Leavenworth until Leavenworth fell down. I mean, she'd never see the light of day again, and she deserves it. So I wouldn't mind seeing Christie hanging around either. Jeb, he might as well just hang it up. He did not gain anything in this election, in this past caucus. And people don't understand how a caucus works. It's a lot different than going in the primaries and walking in and putting in your votes and walking out. You know, caucuses, you got to invest some time, and there's people who are, you have to listen to debates going back and forth. But a caucus, you also learn a lot more, too. And this is where you can really get to know the candidates. And I wish they would have a caucus here in Florida, because I would love to be able to meet these people firsthand so I could ask them questions. And then you can get a much better feel. But sadly, we don't have that many caucuses around this country. So I have to live with what we've seen. Though I was a little upset today with Fox, is that everybody they were interviewing were talking about the mainstream. And they were talking about Bush and Kasich and Christie and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they were totally ignoring the conservatives. And this is where I'm getting a little upset with Fox. They got to start realizing that we're a true, strong part of the Republican Party, and we're coming on whether they like it or not. So, watch out, because we're here to stay, and we're here to plan to take control and to put things back the way they used to be, the way it's supposed to be. With that, I'll pass it over to you, Glenn.
Well, thank you, Dan, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, America. Man, there is. You guys have made some amazing, great points as always, and there's so much to talk about, isn't there? Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I back Trump also in a lot of ways. I'm not too impressed with some of the way the way he chooses his, vocabulary or whatever have you, the way he speaks and whatnot about certain issues and whatnot. But I think he's learning. More how this conservativeness kind of works and whatnot with your speech. I do believe that Ted and him are still kind of moving things around in the background. I think that Ted Cruz is learning a little more and more. So I think he does have to tone some things down, because it has affected outcomes of certain things, of course, with Iowa and whatnot. I think that did play a part. So I think he does have to kind of back off at the right times. And I think that's, with him, it's kind of one of those things where he's so not politically correct. He's almost like almost like a bull out there in a sense too, which is good, but he has to kind of understand how to kind of rein it back a little bit more. He's done some in the last few months, but he's got great timing. He got great timing for some things and not so good timings for other things. And I think he always seemed to come up smelling like roses with everything he's done that's been controversial. Up until I think it's Iowa, and I'm not making light or that it's a huge thing or whatever. I'm just saying that it's Iowa, and it's important. It's important for some momentum in that. But at the same time, is he does have a lot of things going for him with New Hampshire and South Carolina, and even Nevada and Florida. He's got a lot of these states that he's pretty far ahead in a long way. So, what he needs to do now is I believe anyway, is because he kind of had this butt kicked in a sense when it comes to last night in Iowa. I think it's good for him. I think it's good for him that this happened in a way, because it does it will help tone him down a little bit when he needs to be. He needs to take it a little more serious, and I mean he is, but at the same time as the debate that he didn't show up for and whatever have you, that was it was great that what he did. He raised $6 million or more for the veterans, and that's all great and well and good. But he could have done that on a different night also. He didn't really have to pick that night, although there's an argument for that too, that he had over 12 million viewers too, and had he done the debate, then that he would have helped Fox break his own record from the first debate that they had, over 25 million. So you see, it kind of worked for him and worked against him all at the same time. But I believe he will come up smelling like roses again. It's going to take a few days for this to happen, but I think he's got some other things going on. Matter of fact, I know he does, and I just won't reveal them right now. But I do know some inside things that's going on here. But anyways, at the same time, you make a good point too, Dan, about Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson. I hope they stay in too for as long as they can, because we need the non-establishment people, to be in there and whatnot. And even Chris Christie, you're right. I think he would make. Oh my God, can you imagine him being Attorney General? Oh my God, that he would be. He wouldn't stand for nothing. He's already proven that. He did so much in New Jersey, and he did so much. For when he had that role, so he's proven for that. So it's we've said this for months. All of us said that there's so many people that are these candidates that can do so much for a cabinet of whomever is the president on the conservative side, which it will be. But it's so strong. It's so strong. It's great to see, and the only thing is the infighting that goes on. They have to keep it to a bare, minimum, because we do not want to have it affecting people so much that they get so angry or whatever have you at each other that the voters will just not vote. Or turn to Democrat or do or whatever, and that defeats the purpose of this strength that we have with all these candidates. It's a fine line, and I think that people need to understand that we have to stay away from that line, that fine line, because at the end of the day, we all need to vote. Like Jennifer was saying, we all need to vote the nominee of the GOP. We need to people can't just stay at home. So we people that are on radio or on Facebook, whatever, we have to watch our posting and watch what we're doing when it comes to, you can have your person you're endorsing and whatever, and that's all well and good. But the bottom line is the most important endorsement is the GOP nominee. That is the most important right now, because we have so much of a plethora of candidates that are so good that we have to really, really stress this with so many people, because we can lose. You got to keep our eyes on the prize here, and we can lose just by this infighting or whatever that's going on. It can't get any worse than what it has. Let's put it that way, because if it does, you can lose people with that. And anyways, there's also something that happened last night that. Y'all and I have not had a chance to really talk about this, but Ted Cruz's campaign came up with basically here's the quote: Carson left Iowa, so vote for Cruz. I mean, it was, and apparently Ted Cruz apologized for his campaign that did that. I don't know how much that had any effect, or how much effect I should say, on the outcome. I mean, because poor Ben Carson, here he wasn't gone. He didn't leave, and but when you're telling voters that, I mean, persuasion is good to persuade people to vote for you, but not dishonestly deceiving them and whatever have you. So if that made any, I don't know. All I know is it had to affect somehow. I don't know what to degree. But I don't like the smell of that. I really don't like the smell of that at all. And for Ted Cruz to have to apologize for that, for his campaign doing that, I think you're going to see a black eye come from that. I really do. To whatever degree or extent, I don't know. But I'm not liking that happened. I mean, that sounds to me like a Democrat tactic to me. That sounds like something that they would do because they're underhanded, whatever. They'll do whatever they can. They'd sell their mother for $1. But I'm just saying, like, stuff like that. I'm not saying that the GOP or whatever are the conservatives or Republicans are perfect or anything like that. I know we make mistakes and whatever have you. I'm just saying that that's more of a Democratic type of a liberal type of a tactic to deceive people. And we have a commander-in-chief right now, or commander-in-thief, as I call him. He's one that's done that, deceiving everybody for everything he's ever said. I don't think he's done anything that I know of that was any good. And so that type of a tactic to persuade people to vote because someone made up that Ben Carson has suspended his campaign, he left Iowa. I just think that that's wrong. I'd like to hear if you guys heard anything about that because we haven't had a chance to talk about that. But, Donald Trump said, made a statement about that too and a few others. But I don't think there's any room for that. We're supposed to stick together and to use something like that, I mean, I know it's idealistic, it's supposed to be a fair kind of a thing, and unfortunately it's not. But at the same time, is when stuff like that come out, that's going to hurt Ted Cruz. It's going to hurt to whatever degree it's going to hurt him because your campaign can't do that and get away with it. I mean, it's going to come out, and it did come out. So I don't want it to hurt anybody. I just don't want it to ever happen. So anyways, on that note, I'll pass it over to Scott.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Glenn, because that was one of the things today I did was research that. And I'll tell you, one thing we do know that Ted Cruz does not endorse this kind of behavior at all. We do know that. And I'm in some groups. One of the groups I'm in is with some very high-ranking grassroots activists for Ted Cruz. And I'm going to tell you the response last night immediately within those people was abhorrence that had happened. Most Ted Cruz supporters very much like Ben Carson. Ben Carson's not like Donald Trump. The people that are picking somebody other than Ben Carson, they still really like him. Here's what happened, and here's the timeline of what happened last night. CNN released a story which really made it sound very, very much like Ben Carson was done. He was going back to Florida. It's been too much chaos, so on and so forth. One of Ted Cruz's grassroots people, somebody much like you or I, picked it up and shared it. Steve King, and I put the most blame on this on Steve King because Steve King knows better before he tweeted it. He knows that he's representative of the campaign, and he really should have double-checked. By the time this went out and went through the process of the telephone system, it was already found that it was wrong. And I'll tell you, Glenn, I feel the same way as you do. I hate it when this kind of dirty politics is played, and I don't care who it is. I will rip you a new one when you do. Of course, we know that David Dewhurst here in Texas, one of my sarcasm on favorite people, sarcasm off, here in Texas, plays games that way. And he fought that way against Ted Cruz. When Ted Cruz won the Senate seat from him, took over a very powerful incumbent here in Texas, and beat him. Ted Cruz started with 3% and went to 0. Went to like 60%, beat incredibly insane. When Ted Cruz went on the radar, and we know Ted Cruz abhors this, and I'm going to tell you, I can guarantee you, there was some sharp words from Ted Cruz today on the issue behind closed doors. And anytime any kind of this stuff happens, it really aggravates me. And I'll tell you, and Glenn, I know you agree with me on this 100%. You don't help your candidate when you do that. You just don't. Now, I don't think it did any damage to Ben Carson. By the time it became well-known news. They were well into already counting primary votes. And Ben Carson did better than he polled, which was what was expected. And actually, Ben Carson came out of there with doing a little bit better than people were really expecting. But again, he's got a grassroots team that's been on the ground. It's been active. And man, I'm going to tell you, those guys have been going for 2 years. For Ted Cruz, they've been going since he won the Senate. They started talking about running him for president, and he had kind of an elect Kane kind of setup going on a long time ago. And then as we got to the end of last year, he went into full gear with a already networked, organized group of people across the United States. Ben Carson basically did the same thing. They started working on Elect Carson. In fact, some of the same people that started working on Elect Kane, really, in fact, a friend of Jennifer and I's, who really put Herman Cain on the road for running for president, as well, and Carson on the road to run for president as well. But man, I'm going to tell you, and I tell this story all the time, Ben Carson had the most people at the Republican convention last summer, a year ago summer, that I attended when I first got here to Texas. And you walked by his booth, and you couldn't see the booth, folks. I'm telling you, that's how many people were in his booth. Everybody else, Sid Miller, we're over there, me and Sid and Walt and Michael Smith, and a couple other people hanging around. Turn around and go by Ben Carson's booth, and you think you've walked into Las Vegas. You can almost hear the ding, 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 ding. And I'm going to tell you, these guys, I got stopped. I got to where I quit walking by there because every time I walked by, somebody tried to stop me to tell me why Ben Carson has to be president of the United States. It reminded me of the Herman Cain days, but it was incredible. And then, of course, Rand Paul. Rand Paul has had this grassroots organization going on for what, 4 election cycles now? His dad ran 3 times. And Rand has basically demolished the network. It's really kind of sad to see Rand Paul down at 2%, 3%, because they did have a mighty network of grassroots organizers going on at one time. But he still has the foundation in each state to do what they needed to do last night, which was get people into those buildings. And they did. I'll tell you another thing that we want to look at is we want to look at what happened on the other side. Because I'm going to tell you, last night was huge in the story of the Democratic primary for November 2016. This was supposed to be a place where Hillary Clinton took 60% plus, Bernie Sanders took 40% more or less. This was supposed to be, and New Hampshire was supposed to be where Bernie Sanders won. It was next to Vermont. He's way up in the polls there. I think somewhere in the 60s, 70s, 80s, somewhere in there in New Hampshire. But Hillary was supposed to take, and this was supposed to not be too difficult for her to take, Hillary Clinton by cheating. I mean, they flipped a coin 6 times, and Hillary won all 6 flips. Serious, folks. This is how they play, and I'm really hoping Bernie Sanders brings out into the open the cheating that has been going on in that portion of the Democratic Party. Because least case scenario, it was a 50-50. But Hillary won by cheating by just a fraction of a percentage. I think that is a bellwether, folks. I think that is a canary in the coal mine. I think that's the rose at the end of the grapevine. You know why you see roses at the end of grapevines? Because they mold just a little bit before grapes do. So if the roses start molding, you know the grapes are starting to mold. I think Iowa was huge last night in the story of what's going on in the Democratic primary because it did one thing. It proved that Bernie Sanders has still got momentum moving. He's still getting better and better and better, and that it is very possible that he could actually beat Hillary Clinton and walk on to the Democratic nomination. And I'm going to tell you, folks, that is what we need to be praying for. Now, I'm going to tell you, I like Bernie. I really like Bernie, and I'm going to tell you why I like Bernie. Bernie's honest. I'm going to tell you, I don't think Bernie is going to try and cheat against Hillary Clinton. I think he's got the character of Ted Cruz. I think I could honestly say he's not going to on purpose. And he's going to be upset if somebody does cheat. I don't think Hillary could care less how many people cheat, and I think she probably in the background is encouraging. And so Bernie Sanders, as a winner for the Democratic nomination, will force this summer's discussion to be about socialism. It'll be about how you run out of other people's money. It'll be about how it's failed in the past. It'll be why it is a flawed philosophy that we got rid of a long time ago, before I was born, except for this little tiny little root that we have let grow into a place where a lot of our young people, a lot of our under 30 and under even 40 crowd has really got to let the government take care of us, government entitlement mentality. It's really bad right now, folks. We got to turn that around, and I think Bernie Sanders will make that be the conversation, and we win that conversation very easily. It's a very easy conversation to win. You know, Bernie gets mad at all of the people that have got money and wealth in this country, but to all those people that don't have money and wealth, where do you think you get your car loan from? Where do you think you get your house loan from? Where do you think you get your credit card money from? The wealth at the top of our nation is what provides such a wonderful standard of living for even the poorest of poor in our country. You know, on Monday on Conover U, the morning show, Rodney and I talked about poverty in the world. And if you really look at poverty in the world, and if you've really seen, and I've seen poverty in Grenada and Trinidad, I've been in deep Mexico, I've seen the poverty there. If you go to these places and you look, and you compare their poverty-stricken to our poverty-stricken, there is a huge difference. Our poverty-stricken have a better standard of living. You're never going to get rid of the poor. There's always going to be poor, and there's always going to be rich. That has been the way since there's nobody able to figure out how to get rid of that. And their way of redistributing everything just doesn't work. And I really do. I think it was very telling what's been going on in the Democratic Party. On top of the fact that this happened last night, and Hillary, neither one of them can really declare a win, which is important because that declares Bernie Sanders a win since she's the front runner. But I'll tell you, there was a lot of negative press about Hillary Clinton today. I don't know that the media is not starting to eat her. I am going to be the most excited because I said, and Jennifer Montrose and Dan Wilson, you are my witnesses, that 2 years ago I was saying I don't think Hillary Clinton and I don't think Jeb Bush can make it to the general election because I don't think the people want to go back. And I think Hillary started with that as her big hurdle. You add on to that her legal problems, her inability to really actively campaign, her need and necessity to stay far back away from the people. There is nobody that has any kind of access to her, which really there was a lot of talking about that today, that really draws down on the power of her candidacy. And I really think last night we saw the beginning of the end, and I'm going to predict it again because I was saying it 2 years ago. I'm going to say it again. I don't think Hillary wins this. She lost last time to a one-term senator from Chicago that had never even shown up for hardly any of his votes, who'd never even had a real job in his life. Went from being a college student to teaching sometimes. And I'm going to tell you, I'm ready to predict that we're going to watch Hillary downslide from here. If she can't get 50-50 in Iowa right now, and Bernie Sanders still has momentum, last night gave Bernie Sanders a boost. Hillary Clinton may have walked away with the trophy last night. Bernie Sanders walked away with the prize. And that was the momentum. And I think it changes it. And I want to pass it to everybody. Let's talk about the Democrats for a little while. Let's shove them into the ground, man. As we watch this, and we've all said this before, that we really kind of thought that the Democratic primary was going to be more interesting than the Republican. Nobody would have ever thought that they were both going to end up so fascinating this year. So, Jennifer Montrose, what do you think, Clinton or Bernie?
Well, I hope it's Bernie. The Clinton mafia is pretty, they just don't give a rip. And they will go to great lengths to do whatever they can. I mean, look at Benghazi. What difference does it make, as she was quoted saying, so, that the left. Now, I think, that, Bernie may not be one, you may think that Bernie may not be one to participate in some of the dirty tactics and stuff, but the people that are helping him with his campaign certainly will, and he will be one to turn the other cheek and not look and acknowledge, I'm sure, and as well as, our Miss Hillary has done, and it's, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, but I would hope that Bernie would be the one, because I think we have a better chance of defeating, the left if he's the nominee. But I know that, Hillary is a snake in the grass, and she cannot be trusted. Neither can anybody that's around her. And she has games that do stuff for her, at a blink of an eye. And, and her husband's just her puppet that she just, tells what to do, and he just follows orders, and she does all she can to try to hide his tryst and all his things that he does with young women and stuff. It's really sad. He just doesn't know how to keep him, his pants up. It's really sick. But I'm hoping, I keep seeing these videos come out where they do man on the street reporting. They go to these college campus, and they're asking college students, who's the vice president of the United States? And who won the revolution, or who, and just various things. And they can tell you mainstream media, primetime television, actors and actresses, details and sitcoms and all that stuff. But when it comes to just understanding basic knowledge of even who the vice president of the United States is, they have no clue. And it makes me question these, liberal professors and, and stuff. I mean, it just, if you can start indoctrinating them early, that's what they did in World War II. That's how, we now see, I'm really afraid that they're going to start building concentration camps in the United States, and people are going to just get loaded up on trains just like they did back then. And some people seem to think that it's nuts. But this is a very, very important election cycle. We cannot afford to have anything remotely similar to what we did in 2012. And any of the Republican candidates running right now, I would vote for any one of them running on the general election Republican ticket before I would vote for anybody on the left or right, somebody in, because we cannot have what we had for the last 8 years and even prior. There's got to be some change. There's things that we see going on right now with government land grabs, and so much happening. And it's like our elected officials seem to forget we the people and the Constitution and what that means. And, there's just so much unrest right now and so much uprising, and people are so angry over all the things that have taken place in Burns, Oregon. And it's, we've got to have a president who understands, the Constitution and understands what it means to take back America and give it to the people. You know, I don't know if Dan has been able to get his situation straightened back out to get back on with us. Dan, are you there?
Yes, I am. So.
Wonderful. You wrote a really wonderful piece the other day that got lots of attention. I think you shared it on, somebody shared it on my timeline, and I had read it off of yours. But you wrote a pretty lengthy little article that really got some major, likes with a lot of the patriots out there and stuff. I know you have a lot to say about what's been going on and stuff, but this 2016, this is a big deal. People don't seem to understand. I think there's the 1% of us that are patriots that get it, but everybody else is kind of hanging back and, oh, ho hum, I'll just go vote when it's time to go vote, even if I have time to, but it's not, some people are not taking it serious, but what do you have to say about all this?
Well, the one thing that you did mention is about the concentration camps. There's already 4 of them that have been built, and they're called FEMA camps. And having visited Dachau in Germany, they are basically a replica. They are 3-tiered fences with razor wire on the top of each one. And then they go in and they have a series of barracks, just like the ones during World War II. And they, according to FEMA, it was to house people who had been displaced after a natural disaster. But it doesn't make any sense when you see them. Why does it look like a prison camp? And it is laid out exactly how the termination camps were, the death camps were in World War II. So that idea is already in place. And it's scary when you think about that. As for what I wrote, is so many people, so many conservatives say they want to downsize government. And the only way you're going to be able to downsize government is go back to the Constitution. And I spelled this out. I spelled it out in a 2-part system. Where the first part was I explained how the sovereignty of each state was so important back then. And then I went in to say, listen, the way we take the power away from the government is by taking control over our own destinies. And this means by creating our own set of laws and saying to the federal government, you have no business in it. And if you read Article 2 of the Constitution, it states this. And the 10th Amendment also reinforces this. And the more power we take back to the states, not only do we have a direct access to our legislators, we also have control over our laws. And this is the way you are going to beat the federal government. Do not try to fight them on their terms, because you'll never win. And if you want to stop these BLM takeovers and all this stuff, you take control and you put it back to the states. And that's the basic. And what I do is I'm recommending that everybody read both articles. And they're a little bit lengthy because I'm writing them also for High Plains Pundit as specific articles. And the whole idea is I thought that by turning around and teaching, then we can turn around And I guess that second article went viral, and which is cool. I mean, that's why I write these things. I had over 50 people asking if they could repost it, and I said that's why I write them. We also go back to what Scott was saying about what happened with Ben Carson. And this is the Democratic Party is not dumb, nor is the mainstream media. And the only way cheating is their way of doing politics. And once this little leak came out that was immediately snuffed on our side, CNN took and ran with it. And that's what caused all the problems. And Ben Carson stepped up as fast as he could, which was this morning, to say, no, this was totally wrong, and I did not know anything about it, and nor do I condone it. You see, conservatives, because of our belief system, specifically our religious beliefs, prohibits us from doing such things. And this is how the Democrats have been beating us a lot, is because we refuse to lower ourselves to those standards. And we'd rather keep things on the up and up and truthful rather than trying to go out and backstab somebody and win by cheating and lying. And this is what is coming back to haunt Hillary. I mean, she has had a career right back to her husband's administration of lying. That's just her. I mean, I think she has lied so much that there is a fuzzy line between the truth and lying because she doesn't even see it anymore. It is such a part of her being. That's how she could go up to the son, the parents of the relatives who were lost, the sons who were killed in action, and she could lie to them directly without blinking an eye. And she has the heart of a rock. I mean, she does not care who she hurts as long as it benefits her. And we also heard something which is kind of pointing towards Obama wanting to get rid of her. Is Obama came out yesterday that over 200 emails rated top secret or above were sent over Hillary's unsecure server. And of them were the SAP level, which is need to know only. Those are the ones that have the names of our covert operations and those who are working as spies. And the FBI believes that several of those messages were intercepted, and that we may have to pull out some of our spy network for their own safety. And this is not the first time that Hillary and the Obama administration has done this. So, with all this behind, on top of Hillary, that she is lied like a rug, and she is also placed our people in jeopardy, and she has allowed our own citizens. I mean, she gave up Ambassador Stevens and allowed him to die like it was nothing. Extortion 17, which doesn't get mentioned in the media and doesn't even get mentioned here very often. Extortion 17 was the highest single loss of Navy SEALs in the history of that group. 22 Navy SEALs died in Extortion 17. A Navy SEAL dog, and people just say, well, it's just a dog. No, it isn't. Out of 1,000 dogs that are brought into the system, one makes it as a SEAL dog. And it's because the SEAL dog, most dogs are trained to sniff out drugs or do one or two things. SEAL dogs have to be perfect at 5 different disciplines. They have to be able to swim the same distances as their handlers. They have to be able to jump out of airplanes. Their little uniforms they use on missions have night vision. They have all the bells and whistles that the SEALs have. About the only thing they don't carry are weapons. So, I mean, we lose a SEAL dog, you're talking a $500,000 investment. And then on top of that, we lose 4 interpreters, and we lose an entire flight crew and the helicopter. 30 people, 30 Americans dead on her call. I mean, there was 2 Apache attack helicopters escorting that Chinook. They went forward, and they had the terrorists in their crosshairs. They called in to the State Department asking for permission to engage, was denied 4 times. To add to that, there is always a LRP, Long Range Patrol Group, that is sent out prior to any of our military personnel coming into that airport to do a long-range patrol to ensure there's no enemy. They were told to stand down and not do that night. Number 3 is the SEALs always have a specially trained flight crew and modified Chinook helicopters to insert and extract the SEALs. All of those helicopters were at MacDill Airport, MacDill Air Force Base, a few miles away from me, collecting dust along with the specially trained flight crews. And what they did is they took a Chinook that was meant strictly for transport, and they used a Air Force Reserve flight crew who had never been on a covert mission before in their lives. They had no idea how to take evasive actions. Their helicopter didn't have the power. This was a setup, people. And that blood is on Hillary Clinton's hands. And in each time she's denying that she knew anything about that. The woman is evil. And it's coming out. No matter how much the party is trying to hide it, it's coming out. So you're going to see Bernie Sanders, I think, win. And though, of course, I am so against socialism, there's no way in the general election that they are going to be able to hide it. Because all they have to do is start asking, saying, hey, well, all these free things sound pretty darn good. How are you going to pay for it? And Sanders is going to come up with this plan that is going to say, well, we'll get the rich to pay for it, and we'll get the corporations to pay for it. And you still aren't going to have enough money. So there's going to be a reality check to say, unless you raise the taxes, which Sanders has already said behind the scenes, you're going to have to raise the taxes of the average American to 90%. So for every dollar they earn, 90 cents will be going straight to the federal government. And when people start saying, you're going to take 90% of my pay, I don't think this is going to go over too well. And then we can lay to rest this socialist movement. And I think you are seeing the beginning of the end of the Democratic Party as we know it, because they're going to have to totally reinvent themselves. And it's going to take a while, because right now they have dug themselves a hole so deep, I don't see them getting out of it. And God blessed us with some of the best candidates I have seen run for president in my entire life. Even during the Reagan days, we only had really Reagan. I mean, and Ford. Ford was actually a better president than people realize. Ford actually sacrificed his career for what was best for this country by pardoning Nixon. But that's an entirely different story. But anyway, what we have to do is now kind of take a step back and say that maybe Trump may not be and say all the good things that we like to hear as conservatives. But we also have to do a reality check. The first reality check is the abortion issue is not solved by the president. The president can kind of put a little influence into it, but it's the Supreme Court that makes that decision. And that's a fact. The reason why you haven't seen abortion go away is Roe versus Wade, 1967. And no president has the ability to override a law that's been posted in the Supreme Court, even though the Supreme Court, under the Constitution, does not have the authority to even write such a law. But since we have allowed it for so long, what we need to do is, after this election, to start putting together our Article 5 convention, where we can place in some amendments that will force the Supreme Court, the president, and the whole top tier of our federal government and force them to follow the Constitution. Then we can make these changes. And with that, I'll pass it over to Glenn. Glenn? Sorry I took so long.
You're so right, Dan. And you know, Scott, I'm glad you brought up that we need to talk a little bit about the Democratic side of what's happened last night and even today. Some things have happened. And Jennifer, I'm glad you brought up the concentration camps and / FEMA camps that Dan mentioned also, because I have some points on both of them. And as far as Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, it's incredible. It's incredible that what we seen last night, how close that was, and like you said, Scott, about Hillary cheating and whatnot, and she still didn't really. It still was 50-50. It was very close within just a few votes and whatnot. But that's just Clinton. That's just the Clinton and Bush tactics that they use and whatever have you. But at the same time is, to see Bernie Sanders come from basically next to nothing a few months ago to coming this close, I think Hillary's done. And today I saw there was people that were I think she's in New Hampshire or something today, and I think they were in New Hampshire. And anyways, what happened was there was a bunch of people that were pro Bernie Sanders at Hillary Clinton's she had some kind of a rally or whatnot, of course. And there were, and I mean, they didn't put the cameras on them, but it sounded to me like there was dozens and dozens of people. It didn't sound like 2 or 3 hecklers or whatever have you, or protesters or whatever. It sounded like there was dozens of them that were yelling, "She's a liar! She's a liar!" And I mean, when we're seeing this stuff that's going on right now, she's doomed. She's doomed. These are Democrats that are doing this. I mean, I know they're for Bernie Sanders, but the word's getting out. I mean, you get Roger Stone doing books about the Clintons and all these different things that are going on. Word is getting out amongst everyone, and she is doomed. If it's not her health that's going to hurt her, or the scandals that's going to have her indicted to go to jail, it's the people themselves that won't even vote for her. I mean, she last night proved more on the Democratic side than it did even on the GOP side. I know Rubio coming up the way he did, that was, kind of a wow like this for people. But I think it sent a clearer message to the Democrat side of what's going on there with Bernie Sanders against Clinton, that people are getting fed up with her. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not excited that Bernie Sanders, I mean, this guy's he's a proven, he's a socialist. He admits it. He, like you said, Scott, he's honest. I admire that with anyone. First and foremost, someone that's honest. I may not agree with some of the things or darn near everything, that they claim is what they want to do with whatever in the candidacy or whatever. But the thing is, or even in their life. But the thing is, at least they're giving you know what to expect from them. Whereas Hillary, we know what to expect, but on such a different level. She is such a liar, such a cutthroat, cheating. I mean, there's a lot of words to describe her that are very negative, evil words, and proven. And people are starting to actually grasp this. How many decades does it take? But people are actually starting to see this, and which is great for the GOP also, not just for Sanders, but it's good for us too on this side. So last night, I think it was a major hit to the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, because that getting out there is going to wake up a lot of people that are moderate, that just aren't really too sure what side to go. And they proved last night there was a lot more people that showed up to vote and for these caucuses, and more people than years past. And we knew this. We've all been saying that people are waking up. And last night, we look at there's many victories from last night. People can talk about, this, Ted Cruz won this, and Donald Trump was second, Rubio was this, Hillary Clinton. But there's a lot of victories within those victories that we need to understand that are something to move forward with. That because people are waking up. This is the bigger picture, I believe. I may be way off, but I think this is the bigger picture because, like I said in the first comment segment I did, I didn't mean it to mean like it's just Iowa. I meant it like there were so many wins that happened last night that aren't being talked about, but yet the proof is there. And I think we need to have some attention to this because with all these lies and stuff that are coming out with Hillary, that was shown when people voted for Bernie Sanders. So even though we don't like, we don't want obviously we don't want Democrat to win the election, for the general election. But the thing is that's a fair distance off. But all these great wins are I think they're gonna tip it towards the Conservatives even more. And I think last night was just another more proof of that we are seeing more and more people waking up to a lot of different issues that play in the big picture here. And so that I think is incredible, to hear these people shouting, she's a liar, she's a liar. Most of us know this. Most of us that are, obviously doing radio and whatnot, there's few percent, but it's when the voters know it. That is what's most important because at the end of the day, that's what counts on the elections is the voters, and that's why, we people that do the radio and do our postings on Facebook and Twitter and whatever else have you, they're getting the message out, and it is getting out. It's starting to stick with people, and they're starting to wake up, and they're starting to come out. And Iowa was a first eye opener to knowing that more people are getting involved. And now today, seeing how they're against Hillary and whatever have you, that is going to benefit the GOP also. Not just Bernie Sanders is going to help us. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's what makes me excited is because what we've been doing for months and months and years or whatever, it's starting to actually really see some proof of this that's actually working. So that's to be excited about. That's a win, I believe. Jennifer, you mentioned, and so did Dan, about the the concentration camps, FEMA camps. Because that's a reality that I believe is tied into. I know it's conspiracy theories and whatever have you, but I believe that there's some truth that's working behind the scenes here, that the administration is getting this all set up. I'm just wondering if I heard something that happened on January 15th. That was an announcement by Walmart that they're closing a lot of their stores, 269, but 154 of them in the states here, which affect about 10,000 jobs that they say are going to be, basically shifted over, transplanted over to other stores in the other areas. But the thing is, what are they going to do with all these 154 Walmarts? And there could be more than that. This year they're going to close. How convenient for the election to be November of this year. What's going to happen with all that? I mean, I'm just seeing things. That's a reality. Is it attached with other realities that we don't know what's going to happen? But what are they going to do with all of them? And if they're going to use them for FEMA camps, why? And whatever. I don't know 100%, but I'm seeing that a reality. I'm seeing this as a reality. I'm wondering if there's a connection to any of these things. And I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, but at the same time, we got to be alert. We got to be aware, and we got to know where this is coming from and where it's going to. So back at you, Scott. Here you go. What do you think of this, Scott?
Well, I always think there's things going on around us that are being done in secrecy and crazy stuff. I don't know about that one, Glenn, but we do know, I'll tell you, that the Democrats, there is a part of them, not all of them, and I believe this is one of those places where we have to separate out what is the voter, the Democratic voter, the person the everyday calls themselves a Democrat, and the leadership We know that those like Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and that mentality, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they have absolutely no problem lying. I believe Hillary Clinton needs to be placed into that category. But not all Democrats are like that. Not all Democrats are bad. We all agree on the solutions for the most. The problems for the most part. It is the solutions that we disagree upon. Most Democrats think that legislating some kind of fix will solve all of the world's problems, and I don't believe it works that way. And most Republicans don't believe that it works that way. But I'm going to tell you, I really think because of that, that last night is going to be a huge game changer with the Democratic primary on a lot of levels. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I saw today. I saw a couple of people referring to Hillary Clinton, and I did not have sex with that woman. That kind of a mentality that she's been doing with these emails, that even though you've been caught, even though it's obvious that there's something really, really wrong there, you figure if you just deny it enough, that it'll just all go away. That kind of a mentality. And I really think last night changes directions in the Democratic Party, and I think it's going to be the downfall of Hillary. I wouldn't say that if we didn't have a lot of evidence to prove that she's very easy to topple over. We have discussed many of them on this show at different times. You've got her past runs. You've got her past presidential run. It was a failure. Remember, she came third in Iowa last time. She came behind Barack Obama and Edwards. It was a catastrophe. And she just had a real easy win there in New York City when she became a senator. It was a gimme election designed almost for her. She just doesn't have what it takes to really win this. And, Dan, you brought up a lot of good things. Jennifer, Glenn, you guys all brought up a great, if we put them all in a list of the problems that Hillary Clinton's really got and the Democratic Party's really got right now. I just do. I think we're going to watch it with smiles over the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, actually. But really, as we head into some of these other primaries, we're going to start seeing immediately, folks, like within this next week, some of the results of what we're discussing and how it's affecting Hillary Clinton. We're going to see some poll numbers change if this is really true, that Bernie Sanders can actually pull off 50-50 in Iowa. What can he do to Hillary Clinton over the next few weeks in the polls? What can he do in New Hampshire? I'm going to tell you, folks, if they've been expecting him to get 70% in New Hampshire, and I'd have to look. It's been a while since I've looked at what they were expecting Bernie, but it's pretty high because he's next door to Vermont. But if Bernie Sanders walks away with, a 91, 92% away from Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire, even though she's not expected to win there, New Hampshire could be damaging to her, like almost a second kick in the gut after Iowa. And then where do you go from there? She's got South Carolina. That's Southern. And right now she's doing pretty well in the polls. Does that change? And if Bernie Sanders ties her in South Carolina like he's done in Iowa, man, I'm telling you, I don't think you can stop that kind of momentum. We learned about momentum with the Herman Cain train, and we could feel momentum. And I learned that. You can feel the momentum, and you can look at what's going on the ground. You can look at the poll numbers. You can look at the stories. You can look at the attitudes and everything. You can put it all together, and you can get a feel of what's going on. When Herman Cain went to Florida CPAC, as Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning went on, we had people on the ground at CPAC, and we could feel the momentum gaining and growing over the couple of days towards Herman Cain actually winning that straw poll. And he did, and we can feel the momentum going. I'm going to tell you right now,
I feel a momentum for Bernie that if right now he's in a dead heat with her, in a couple of weeks he's ahead of her. And I think he's ahead of her in national polling. I think he's going to be ahead of her either tying or winning in these places where she actually could get a win. She could walk away with the trophy, but barely, and therefore not really getting anything out of it. So another thing going on right now as we go forward are a lot of these local elections, which are also important. And that's where I want to bring us back to in the conversation in the last probably time we've got to go around, the subject of the grassroots. Because I'm going to tell you, that's what made a difference last night. We knew that Ted Cruz could pull behind Donald Trump and still beat him because Donald Trump has no grassroots organization. Basically, everybody that's there he's bought and paid for. Same thing with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio had some good boots on the ground over the last 2-3 weeks in Iowa, but it wasn't grassroots activists doing that for him for free. He was paying those guys to do that as we went forward. So, but we know we've got some local races that are really important to us. Some races here in Texas that are important to us. Of course, we've got Ohio. We've got Matt Lynch running. Melissa Bohannon, social media director for Matt Lynch, a good friend of ours, is doing his social media. We've got J.D. Winteregg. We've got a lot of local races running around, and I'm going to tell you, folks, every one of these primaries are gaining. Now, the caucus didn't last night, but the primaries are going to also gain us a lot of local elections where there are people all over the country primarying incumbents who have been worthless. Now, I will say it till the day the cows come home that J.D. Winteregg forced John Boehner to retire. I'm a firm believer he did that. I think John Boehner saw the writing on the wall. I think he saw that there was a good chance that J.D. could beat him in his own incumbent, and I don't think he wanted to be an Eric Cantor. And so when you're that powerful, you don't resign. You fight to the end, unless you just see the writing on the wall big time that you're in trouble. That's the only reason you resign. So I'm fully confident J.D. Winteregg did that. Now let's send J.D. up there. But we have got something that, and I noticed this last night as I was watching the news and watching the Iowa primary, incredible participation among the grassroots and young and new voters. There were a lot of Democratic voters out there that were college age, that were new, young Republicans that were out there. There has been an incredible, now if you have not been paying attention to what's been going on with Camp Cruz up in Iowa, Jennifer Montrose, Dan, I have a really good friend, Ken Brolin, who has been running Camp Cruz in Iowa, has done an incredible job and is now on his way to move to the great state of Texas. By the way, everybody, oh yes, Ken Brolin moving to Texas. Been working on that for a long time. But he's been doing Camp Cruz up there, and there has been this train load, constant back and forth, of activists from Texas running up and staying at Camp Cruz. Some very well-known people, some people we've talked about on this show a lot. Matt Krause and Connie Burton, our senator and representative, both went up there for some time, along with a lot of incredible Maggie and Kat and Morgan and all of these incredible grassroots activists here in Texas. I think this is the year of the grassroots. And I think Eric Cantor and the David Brat election really gave us some juice. I know, Jennifer Montrose, you and I both, especially, because we do a whole lot of talking behind the scenes most of the time. I've been kind of hiding out for the last couple of weeks, but we most of the time, and you and I have often gone back to Eric Cantor, David Brat, that mentality, because you and I have spent hours and hours and hours up late at night doing things related to and after what we learned from Herman Cain and the power of grassroots activism. And I think, and I think you might be seeing this too, and that's why I ask you this question as I hand this back over to you. I am seeing a re-energizing, I guess is the way you would say it, of the grassroots. I'm seeing, again, more people coming into it that had never done politics before, again, like before, with Herman Cain. I'm just seeing a resurgence in momentum in the grassroots. I think that's what helped Ted Cruz. It's powerful there. And I think that's what is going to really help us defeat the liberals this next November. I really do. Jennifer, are you seeing the same thing, not just among our friends, and you and I have got an incredible network of activist friends, but with kind of other things that you're seeing on the side? Am I missing this, or are we getting people back off the couches?
Oops.
Uh-oh, am I on mute?
Yeah, you're there now.
There you are.
I was looking to see if I had.
Well,
I'm glad I'm not the only person.
You made some good points. You know, I don't know. I mean, first thing I think about with all that's going on right now is we need more people to pay attention and wake up. We had too many people that smiled and willingly gave up their right to bear arms in World War II. They were told so many things, and people believed them. You know, and so I listen to what Bernie has to say, and people just think that somehow something magic is going to take place, and their college education is just going to all of a sudden be paid for. And they don't even think beyond, you know, where's the money going to come from? And, you know, I think some of that may have to do with why we're making, you know, cannabis legal in some states. And, you know, and I've heard so many things from people that live, my friends in Colorado, that talk about since they, you know, made cannabis legal in Colorado, that there's more dumbing down of education and people just don't seem to give a rip, you know, and we're producing these kinds of, you know, progressive liberal kids because of Common Core, you know, and nobody seems to be connecting the dots. You know, National Wildlife Refuge, look where the money's coming from. Follow the money trail. You know, they're all connected. Agenda 21, you know, all these various things that you see going on around the country. Pay attention. Why is it that when the Constitution says that government, federal, does not own the land? It was purposely, the Constitution was written the way it was to protect us from one world order. I mean, you know, Dan can speak to that pretty clearly. You know, and people don't seem to understand. Why does it take, you know, years and years for a city like ours here where I live to have, after a major national tornado, for businesses to get rebuilt? Well, because they have to follow the green laws, the green guidelines. You know, all these restrictions that box people in. And people don't seem to understand. Oh, it looks beautiful. You know, we've got the, you know, walkways a certain way and stuff, but what they don't realize is, you know, one of my dear friends who owns a beauty salon almost lost it because they were going to commandeer her property. It was her property in prime real estate, but she owns it. And they were going to turn it over and make a walking memorial park for all of those that lost their lives in the tornado, right over, smack dab over her business. There's no care or concern for individual American citizens. It's all about government control, and so, somebody was telling me earlier today, when you're in Burns, Oregon, and you've got federales coming at you, ask them for their ID. Just because somebody's wearing a uniform does not necessarily mean that that's who they are. Stolen valor, as we've heard it before. It's crazy what we have going on right now. And here's the other thing that really scares me, and maybe we could talk about this on another show. We've got a militia, and that's out there. So how many people really know who is militia and who is not? And how do you know that the people from overseas that are coming over here, that have their own personal agenda against the United States are not coming here to perpetrate, to act as if they are a part of us, a part of the Patriots in creating division and divide, and uprest, so that we can, have another Waco. And, when you've got the potential of having somebody like Hillary Clinton becoming president, you need some American people that are able to see clearly through all of her demise, and even on the Republican side, we've got some people that have their own personal agendas that don't really care about closing the borders. They perfectly okay with amnesty. And this is the year to be mindful of, when you've got somebody running for judge in your area, please pay attention to who they are and what they represent, what they believe in. Constitutional sheriffs like Carl Pittman running for sheriff in Houston, we need to be totally aware of what's going on around us. And don't rely on somebody else to protect you. Learn how to be armed and educate yourself to protect your own self. Because, you can't carry the police around on your shoulder. And the time it takes for you to dial 911, you could be dead. And don't just trust, my husband carries. There's no need for me to really bother. Are you going to take him everywhere you go? What's going to happen when you're walking out of the grocery store, 10 o'clock at night, coming out of Walmart? Where's your husband? Get prepared, people. This is serious business. There are folks that think that this Constitution is just some sort of historical document that's sitting up there in Washington, D.C. on display for people to see. They don't understand that it's a live, breathing thing. I mean, seriously, when you really put it into action and the Constitution is adhered to the way it's supposed to, society's pretty easygoing and easy to deal with. But the minute you start violating any one of those amendments to the Constitution, people don't understand the true reason for the Second Amendment. It has nothing to do with hunting deer. Dan, what say you?
Amen, Jennifer, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you brought up the article that I did yesterday, because it's part of a multi-part program, and the whole idea is to show the public that, yes, the Constitution is a living, breathing document. It changes with the times. It can evolve into whatever we the people want. And the whole idea behind this, and the only way we're going to save this nation is, well, during the election we can't really get involved right now. But right after the elections, we need to split our resources, and we cannot rely on the mainstream Republican Party or Democratic Party. we have to rely on the moderates, the people who see that there is a way to change the course, because I don't think either side likes what's going on. And that's why Obama went so far out of his way to try to create rifts within our own people. So it's much easier to destroy a group if they are divided than if they are solidified. And what we need to do is start going back, and it needs to be a two-part thing. One is we need a group who is going to set up and organize, and each state, all 50 states, is going to set up and organize their part of creating a Article 5 convention. And once we get all the states involved and we gather representatives, because remember, we have to have the majority of each state to agree to go along with this. And it's going to take the grassroots movement to shift gears from doing it from the political end, supporting a politician, to supporting an Agenda 5 convention. And they're going to have to be out there walking door to door and explaining the reason why we need it. And I'll be happy to write up the amendments, and then we can pass them along to the 50 states, and then we can have the convention. We can debate the amendments, which ones we want to go through and which ones we don't. And then we can bring them back to the people for a vote. We can bring it to in front of the convention. If it's passed by 2/3, then they become amendments, and we can introduce them into law in the federal government. Number 2 is we need a group who is going to do the exact same thing, going door to door and explaining that we are going to take control over our own states, that we are no longer going to adhere to federal laws, and we are going to use our 10th Amendment rights and our personal sovereignty to choose our own way and our own way to live. And what's this going to do? It's actually going to change this country fundamentally. But it'll do it in a good way, because what will happen is that it'll force all the far left into certain states where they can do no harm because they are consolidated to a given area, while the states who are conservative will be able to conduct things under the Constitution exactly the way it was written. And yes, we're going to have some problems with the liberal states, but on the other hand, when you can consolidate, when a person's sick, if you can consolidate the illness to one part of the body, it's easier to heal. And it's the same thing with our country. If we can consolidate the problems, and if one state wants to have, legal abortion and all the drugs and everything like that, Well, you know what's going to happen? Eventually they're going to go bankrupt. And they're going to fall and die off on their own. So let them do it. While the rest of us build the country the way it was meant to be. And that's the whole basic premise. And I'm going to continue on with this series. As soon as we're done with the show, I'll explain more. But we're also going to, what we need to do is we need to educate, because obviously the colleges and our school systems are not telling the truth. They're only giving you a piece that you want to hear. And they are not showing what it means to be a true socialist and how your life is totally controlled by the state. And how all your constitutional rights that you keep on falling back on are not going to be there. And we need to educate these people and explain that to them. And this is why we need what I call a soft revolution, meaning that we aren't going to go out and load muskets and go out and shoot each other. But there's one part that we need to clarify is, for instance, what's going on in Oregon. We have to understand and respect the sovereignty of that state. And if they do not want militia members coming from another part of the country, then we need to respect that. And our Second Amendment rights doesn't give us the right to enter into another state to defend even something that we believe in, right? To try to stop the BLM movement. That has to be conducted on a state-by-state basis. And if our militias, our state militias, need extra help, then they can call for outside help. But we can't go in and do what we did in Oregon, because then we're attacking the very thing we're trying to save, and that's the sovereignty of a state. And I got a lot of flack over this by militia members who were calling me a troll and all sorts of things. But the fact is that every state is sovereign. And look up the definition of sovereignty. It means self-existent. And that means we have to respect whatever's going on in whatever state. And the Hammonds did not want the Bundys involved, and they did not want the militias involved. Now, it went totally against what we want to stop, which is the takeovers, the land takeovers. But we also have to respect their rights. We violated the Hammond's Fourth Amendment rights, and we violated the state of Oregon's 10th Amendment rights. How can we win this fight if we are ignoring parts of the Constitution, just like our leaders are doing today? and only accepting the parts we want to listen to. And this is, it's gonna have to, if we're gonna be successful on this entire thing, we're gonna have to play by the rules. And some of the rules we may not like. For instance, the abortion issue. We're automatically going to think of it on a federal position. But if we're going to remove the power of the federal government, we have to take that issue onto the state level and remove the federal government. Therefore, it has to be decided on a state-by-state basis. And if we wish the federal government to get involved, then during the Article 5 convention, we include abortion. Otherwise, the federal government is out of the picture. And this is why we need the Article 5 convention, so we can determine what we want the federal government to be in control of and what we don't. And this is the whole idea, is I'm using the Constitution to our benefit, because if we utilize the Constitution as our forefathers saw, then we can solve a lot of these problems. But in doing so, it also means that on the state level, we got to take on a lot more responsibility. But in doing so, we also have, as citizens, we have a more direct access to the people who are calling the shots. And this is what a republic is. A republic is a government that is ran by the people. How can you run it? How can the people run it when they can't get access to the people who we sent to represent us? And this is why it has to be on a state-by-state basis. And if we don't agree, like let's say Florida is anti-abortion, but Georgia is pro-abortion, we have to respect their decisions. And we can't, or let's say there's a major land grab going on in Georgia, and they don't want Florida militias to come in. We have to respect that. So there's going to have to be mind changes on both sides. So it's kind of a very, very difficult thing to work in. But the whole idea is if we want to work and make this whole thing work out right, we need to follow the Constitution by the letter and allow it to be a living and breathing thing. And then we can win. With that, I'll pass it over to Glenn.
Well, you're exactly right, Dan. And you know, we play the Red Skeleton from on Saturdays, and his real important line in that is, from the people to the leaders. And that's the only way it's going to get done. That's the only way it ever has gotten done. And we are getting back to that. We're seeing it on the grassroots, and we gotta get everybody involved in the local elections. It's not just about the federal, because you're right. We have to have everything moving from the bottom up, because if not, then they have the control from the top down. So it's of utmost importance to have this happen. These local elections coming on soon and whatnot, these are so important. And I know we're getting to the top of the hour, so I'm going to throw this back to Scott here.
Well, yeah, how we did it, I don't know. We're running out of time quickly, and we'll be going into archive. So we had a great discussion tonight. I'll tell you, it's just crazy what we're seeing go. We really, in the years leading up to 2016 and this election, really were painted a very different picture of what it was going to be like. We were basically told for years now that it was going to be Hillary Clinton and it was going to be Jeb Bush. And I've always had a problem with that because I think they both suffer from not wanting to go back. Take everything else out of it. Take Hillary's problems or legal problems, take everything out of it, strip it all down to Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. They don't want to go back. They don't want Bill Clinton back in the White House. They don't want to go to the second brother of a father who had basically had you could say, and I liked George. I liked both of them. I think they were good men, but conservative they were not, and fiscally conservative they really were not. And I tell you, folks, as we go forward, we are a long ways from it looking like Hillary Clinton is coronated and Jeb Bush is coronated. Jeb Bush never got off the ground, really. There's some places in Real Clear Politics before really the primary season really began where Jeb's poll numbers were, he was at the top because he was really the only one that really being considered. But as more people came into the race, he basically, Scott Walker, started the trounce of Jeb Bush, and Donald Trump and Ben Carson both finished it. And we can be always thankful for the three of them for that, and for Donald Trump especially. I think Donald Trump had a big hand in that. We have some great things going on Contending for Truth Radio. Want to thank everybody for being here. Don't forget Saturday Symposium. You guys are having, are you guys having Morgan Brittany, the Morgan Brittany on this Saturday, Dan?
Yes, we are.
Very awesome. Morgan Brittany, you might remember her as Catherine Wentworth on Dallas. She was Cliff Barnes' sister and a nemesis of JR's, and a great actress. I'm going to tell you what I love about Morgan Brittany, and it's a story that she tells. We've talked about on our shows. Is the fact that when she was up for that part with Dallas, she had just gotten married. And she really struggled back and forth. Oh, should I dedicate everything to my marriage, or should I take this awesome opportunity? And they really worked really hard during those years to put their marriage first. And they're still married. All these decades later, they are still married and happy, and have a very successful family, successful kids. It's just still, you got the white picket fence sitting across Morgan Brittany's front yard symbolically. Just a great, great lady. Very powerful. One of the authors of What Women Really Want. You can look that up on Facebook. You can buy it at Amazon. I would encourage everybody to buy that book by Morgan Brittany and Anne Marie Morell and Dr. Gina Gentry Loudon. Three friends of Contending for Truth Radio. Definitely love those ladies. The Politichicks, folks. Give them a big old plug before Morgan ever gets to Saturday Symposium. Check out the Politichicks. Just go Google it, Politichicks, and find out everything that those three ladies are doing. They're doing a great job of spreading a lot of information with a whole organized network of girls writing, women writing Politichicks all over the country. Good friend Shannon and Shannon Sloan and her mother. She better not be listening. Her name just went away, and I don't know what to do about that. Close friend, you know how that happens sometimes. But no, well, they moved to Texas. They're getting ready to move to Indianapolis. Gonna miss them. But anyways, with that, we're gonna put it off with some applause because we are at a point of not wanting to wait too long before shutting it off. So I want to thank everybody. Saturday Symposium, don't forget on Saturday. Connor Review on Monday morning show. And so everybody have a great time. Thanks.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Earlier this week, Claire Tippins shared a princess nickname generator, 3 pictures of her dog wearing a tutu, and 2 online quizzes, including what candy is your dream castle made of? Claire, your sharing has tipped the sugar scale and turned into oversharing. But have no fear, princess. Geico has something worth sharing with your internet kingdom, like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance just by visiting geico.com. No magic wand required. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.